Welcome back, dear listener. It's good to have you here again. Before we begin tonight's journey, take a deep breath and let your thoughts settle. If you enjoy these reflective explorations, remember to subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what topic you'd like to hear next. Each story begins with your curiosity. Tonight, we drift forward in time into a world reshaped by one of humanity's darkest possibilities, a nuclear war. It's a subject we all feel quietly beneath the surface these days. The tension between nations, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the unease that hums through global politics, all remind us how fragile peace truly is. Yet, even in imagining catastrophe, there is room for hope. This story is not about endings, it is about what follows them. Imagine the morning after the long silence. The sky, once torn by fire, hangs pale and strange, veiled in dust that softens the sunlight into a dim gold. The cities that once pulsed with noise now rest in a stillness no one remembers. Yet somewhere, perhaps in an old farmhouse or beneath the hills in a shelter, people wake. Their breath clouds in the cold air, and they realize they are still alive. At first, survival is simple and raw. Water, warmth, shelter, and food. These are the thoughts that fill the day. But beneath them stirs something deeper, a quiet determination to begin again. The human spirit, tested and scarred, does not yield easily. Even surrounded by ruin, it seeks meaning. In the first weeks after the last siren faded, the world becomes smaller. The survivors stay close to familiar places, valleys shielded from wind, rivers still running clean, forests that escaped the worst of the heat. The old world systems are gone, but memory remains. People remember how to grow food, how to mend, how to build fires. Those memories, once taken for granted, now become sacred knowledge. The air carries the faint metallic tang of fallout. Yet nature does not surrender. Moss begins to spread across concrete. Birds, cautious but curious, return to quiet streets. The earth, though wounded, starts to breathe again. Radiation changes many things, but not the will of life to endure. There are no nations now, only small groups scattered like seeds across the continent. Communication is broken, but kindness survives in gestures. A shared loaf, a mended coat, a fire lit for a stranger. Humanity shrinks, but compassion expands. In a world stripped of comfort, empathy becomes the greatest resource. Each night, survivors look to the sky. Sometimes they see strange colors rippling faintly through the upper air. Echoes of what once was, remnants of the fire that nearly consumed everything. Yet beyond those veils of light, the stars endure, unbroken, eternal. They have seen empires rise and fall, and they will watch this new beginning too. And so, in this quiet, uncertain dawn, the first chapter of post-nuclear life begins. It is not the end of humanity, but its transformation, a return to simplicity, to humility, to the fragile, astonishing gift of being alive. The early months after the Great Silence are slow, heavy, and uncertain. Each sunrise feels like an act of courage. The world is changed, its colors muted, its rhythm fractured, but life, in its quiet persistence, refuses to fade. Communities begin to take shape, not out of strategy, but out of need. People find one another through instinct, like embers drifting together until a new fire catches. There are no nations, no governments, only small circles of survival. A family of 4 joins a farmer who still remembers how to work the land. A nurse finds a group of children in the ruins of a school and becomes their teacher. Humanity reorganizes itself, not through law, but through kindness. The land bears scars, melted highways, forests turned to blackened skeletons, rivers glowing faintly with strange light. Yet within those scars, green begins to return. Weeds rise first, brave and stubborn. Their roots dig into ash and dust, finding what little life remains. From these humble plants, insects emerge again, then birds. Nature does not rush, but it never stops. The survivors learn from it. They move with patience, accepting that the old conveniences, power grids, supermarkets, machines belong to another era. Now they listen to the earth the way their ancestors once did. The rhythm of seasons returns as the world's true calendar. Rain becomes a blessing. The first clean snow, a promise. Communication remains fragile. Some use old radios, scavenged and rebuilt, sending faint messages into the static. The voices that answer are few, but each one is proof that the world still breathes. A young woman in what was once Eastern Europe speaks in short, cautious words to a man across the sea. They share weather reports, news of growing crops, and the names of birds that have returned. Their words, crackling through the noise, sound like prayer. Children born after the war do not remember the cities as they once were. They play in the shells of buildings, their laughter echoing down empty streets. To them, the old world is legend, a time of lights and noise, of metal and speed. They live close to the ground, barefoot, curious, unburdened by nostalgia. Their world is smaller, but it is also gentler. The air grows cleaner with each passing season. The absence of engines, factories, and warplanes allows the wind to purify the sky. The sunsets deepen, painted in colors unseen for centuries. Amid ruin, beauty returns, quiet, unannounced, almost shy. Animals wander where humans once ruled. Deer graze in the courtyards of collapsed towers. Foxes trot through empty train stations. Even wolves and bears reclaim the forests without fear. Nature, given space and silence, begins to forgive. And through it all, the survivors rebuild, not to restore what was lost, but to learn how to live differently. They no longer seek dominance over the earth, but harmony with it. Every meal, every seed planted, every shelter raised is an act of gratitude. Each night, as the campfires glow and the wind whispers through the dark, a new kind of civilization begins, one quieter, humbler, and perhaps wiser. Humanity has walked to the edge of its own extinction, and from that precipice, it begins to turn back toward life. As seasons turn and the first years drift quietly by, the survivors begin to form the outlines of something new. Not the return of the old world, but the birth of another. Where once there were cities of steel and glass, now there are gardens and shelters built from reclaimed stone and timber. The hum of machines is gone. The world moves once more at the pace of footsteps and wind. At first, survival is the only rule. People trade skills instead of money. A healer's care for a carpenter's hands, a basket of roots for a woven cloak. Slowly, these exchanges form bonds, and bonds form trust. Villages take shape near rivers and valleys that escape the worst of the fallout. They are small and quiet, yet alive with purpose. In these new communities, power looks different. Leadership is not claimed through force, but through wisdom. Those who remember old knowledge, farmers, teachers, engineers, herbalists, become the guides. Children grow up learning to listen, to work with the earth, rather than against it. Their education is not found in screens or books, but in experience. How to read the weather, how to find clean water, how to share. The remnants of technology still linger. Some manage to repair wind turbines or solar panels scavenged from forgotten places. A faint light glows again in a few homes, powered by the sun, though most rely on fire and daylight. The survivors no longer crave the endless power of their ancestors. They use what they find carefully, as if technology itself were a wild animal that must be respected, not tamed. The skies have cleared in many regions. The clouds are lower, the stars more vivid. The layer of dust that once veiled the world begins to thin. Rain falls again, in gentle patterns. Rivers run clearer each year, their banks slowly healing. Radiation still lingers in pockets, invisible, dangerous. But its territory shrinks with every season, reclaimed by time and wind. The ecosystem, wounded yet resilient, adapts. New species appear. Plants that thrive in harsher soil, animals slightly changed by the storms that once poisoned their air. Nature does not mourn what is gone. It evolves. Humanity, learning from its mistakes, follows that same lesson. In the evenings, communities gather to share stories. The oldest among them speak of the time before, of cities that glowed like stars, of flying machines, of oceans crossed in hours. The younger ones listen with awe, but their wonder is mixed with disbelief. Those tales sound like myths, distant and impossible. Their world is quieter, but more real. They know the names of every bird, the taste of every root, the path of every season. There are no borders now, no nations marked by lines. The earth belongs once again to everyone who lives gently upon it. People speak in many tongues, yet understand one another through shared need. The divisions that once defined humanity have faded. Cooperation is no longer an ideal, but a necessity. And as the years pass, something remarkable begins to happen. The first sense of beauty returns. Music, long silent, rises again. A child fashions a flute from hollow reed. Another sings to the rhythm of a hammer striking wood. Art, born from survival, becomes a language of hope. In this new world, humanity is smaller but purer. It has lost much: comfort, control, certainty. But in their absence, it rediscovers something greater: belonging. The earth, no longer conquered, has become a companion once more. As it always does, smooths the edges of ruin. A decade passes, then another. What began as survival becomes life, and life begins to look forward again. The scars of fire and ash soften beneath moss and grass. The earth, once silent and grey, fills once more with colour and movement. Forests grow over the remains of cities. Roots crack through stone, swallowing the bones of the old world. Towers collapse quietly, under ivy and thyme. In places where nothing green had grown for years, wildflowers spread in seas of yellow and violet. The air carries the scent of renewal. Animals return in patterns no one predicted. Some species long gone reappear, their ancestors having survived in hidden valleys. Others adapt into strange, beautiful forms. Deer with lighter fur to reflect the changed sunlight. Birds with new songs shaped by the altered winds. Evolution, once slowed by humanity's dominance, now runs free again. The survivors learn to live among these changes. Villages no longer fear the wilderness. They depend on it. They gather herbs from forest edges, fish from rivers that once ran toxic, but now glimmer with life. The relationship between people and nature becomes one of respect rather than control. Every tree cut is replaced with a seed. Every hunt is followed by gratitude. Children grow up believing the forest is sacred. They are taught to listen before they act, to see the land not as a resource, but as a teacher. It is the earth itself that guides their future. The old faiths, the old economies, the old ambitions have faded. In their place rises a quiet reverence for balance. Yet even in peace, there are reminders. Certain regions remain forbidden. Silent plains where nothing grows, valleys where the air shimmers with invisible danger. These are the memorials of the war, untouched and unhealed. People mark them with stones and wildflowers, places of warning and remembrance. No monuments of marble are built, only circles of silence, where the living come to reflect on what was nearly lost. In some parts of the world, nature becomes strange and wondrous. Forests glow faintly at night from the lingering traces of radiation. New species of fungi and insects emerge, thriving where others could not. The ecosystem, though altered, is alive and self-sustaining. It does not return to what it was. It becomes something entirely new. Scientists, or what remains of them, keep careful records. They write in journals made of handmade paper, sketching plants and animals unknown to the past. Knowledge is shared from village to village, passed not through data, but through memory and story. Humanity's curiosity endures, humble yet unbroken. At night, the world feels larger again. With no cities to drown the sky, the stars return in their full brilliance. Constellations forgotten for generations blaze over silent forests. The Milky Way spills across the heavens like a river of silver dust. Those who survived gather by their fires, looking up in wonder, feeling both small and infinite. In the quiet that follows destruction, Earth has found a strange kind of peace. Humanity, once its greatest burden, has become its careful guardian. The scars remain, but they no longer define the world. What was nearly destroyed has been transformed, not back into what was lost, but into something gentler, something wiser. The lesson of survival becomes the foundation of life itself. To live is to learn, and to learn is to heal. In the generations that follow, the survivors' children and grandchildren grow into a world both new and ancient. They no longer remember the fear of sirens or the shadows of burning skies. What they inherit instead is a quieter, slower Earth, one that demands attention and rewards patience. When survival becomes certain, the human spirit naturally turns to creation. The first songs are simple, hums and chants to mark the passing of days, the rhythm of tools against wood, the rustle of wind in the trees. Then come stories, soft, meandering tales told by firelight. Some remember the world before, others imagine the worlds that might yet come. From these stories, language evolves again, richer and more fluid than before. Art returns not as decoration, but as devotion. People paint with soil and ash, with buried eyes and crushed leaves. Their walls become murals of gratitude, depictions of rivers, mountains, animals, and the fragile human faces that endure beside them. Every mark carries meaning. Every image a quiet declaration. We are still here. Sculpture and music follow. Instruments are built from what the earth provides. Reed flutes, wooden drums, strings of woven sinew. The sounds they make echo across valleys that were once battlefields. The music is slow, meditative, shaped by the pulse of wind and water. It reminds those who listen that beauty can grow even from ruin. In the absence of technology, communication becomes intimate. Letters return, handwritten on handmade paper, sealed with wax or simple twine. The words travel slowly, carried by foot or boat, but they arrive with meaning intact. Each letter is treasured, read aloud, and kept. Humanity rediscovers the weight of words, the art of silence between them. Philosophy, too, awakens. The thinkers of the New World are not academics, but observers, shepherds, gardeners, storytellers. They ask gentle questions around fires. Why did the old world fall? What does progress mean when it forgets its heart? Can power exist without destruction? The answers come not as certainty, but as shared reflection. Old ruins become places of pilgrimage. The skeletons of skyscrapers, the shells of libraries, the frames of bridges, all are visited with reverence, not for what they represent, but for what they teach. People touch the cold stone and remember how easily greatness can collapse. They build small shrines at the foot of these relics, offerings of flowers or carved wood, symbols of peace in the shadow of the past. Education grows slowly, yet with deep roots. Children learn to read and write, but they also learn to listen, to the land, to one another, to silence. Schools are open fields, riverbanks, groves of trees. Knowledge is not measured in numbers or ranks, but in understanding. The new teachers remind their students that intelligence is not mastery over nature, but harmony with it. The earth itself becomes the greatest library. Its pages are leaves, its ink the cycles of growth and decay. Humanity begins to see that wisdom is not about remembering the past alone, but about learning to exist within the present. And through art, music, and story, a new kind of civilization takes form, one without monuments of pride, but rich with meaning. It is not built on conquest or competition, but on remembrance and restraint. The people of this reborn world live with the awareness that every sunrise is a gift earned through survival. Their laughter carries farther now, no longer drowned by machines, and their hands, once tools of destruction, have become instruments of care. Generations pass, and the world grows quieter still, but not empty. Across the continents, the faint pulse of connection begins to return. Once, humans linked themselves through invisible signals and electric voices. Now they do so through journeys, letters, and shared stories carried by wind and sea. The descendants of those first survivors begin to travel again, not for conquest nor for trade in the old sense, but for understanding. They follow rivers to their sources, cross plains once thought unlivable, climb mountains where clouds once carried ash. Everywhere they go, they find signs of life, new forests, thriving wetlands, and communities like their own. Travelers become messengers between worlds. They bring with them seeds, songs, and languages. In one valley, they learn a word for peace that means the sound after rain. In another, they are taught a song that marks the stars of the harvest. Slowly, the fragments of humanity begin to weave themselves back together. Boats are built again, though small and simple, powered by wind and oar. They follow the currents of calm seas, where once fleets of steel ships ruled. Sailors carry with them relics of the past, maps drawn from memory, fragments of old compasses, journals written in the new languages of their world. Each voyage is an act of hope, an attempt to rediscover what was thought lost without awakening the mistakes that destroyed it. On these journeys, ruins still rise from the deep. Sunken cities, skeletal bridges, the outlines of the old age. Travelers approach them with awe, not fear. They see them not as ghosts, but as reminders of what humanity is capable of, both in creation and in carelessness. They leave offerings, shells, carvings, flowers, small gestures of respect to a vanished world. As news of other communities spreads, the sense of isolation fades. Humanity realizes it is not alone, but part of a quiet, scattered network of survivors. They share stories of strange new lands, forests glowing faintly at night, animals that sing in patterns unlike any before, rivers whose waters shimmer with microscopic light. Life has adapted, evolved, and in many places flourished. Trade returns, though not for wealth. People exchange seeds, tools, and stories. A woman from the northern plains carries grains that thrive in cold soil. A man from the coast brings salt, dried fish, and tales of great storms. Barter is guided by need, not greed. There is no currency, but trust. Alongside trade, new symbols of unity appear. Some communities raise simple stone circles inscribed with patterns of stars, shared among travelers as signs of friendship. Others mark their boundaries with living trees, reminders that peace must grow to survive. Humanity, for the first time in its history, begins to rebuild not through power, but through harmony. There are rumors, too, of small groups preserving fragments of ancient knowledge. Engineers who keep old machines dormant, scientists who study the scars of radiation. But these people are cautious. They know too well what happens when curiosity outruns compassion. Knowledge in this new age is not hoarded. It is tended like a fire, carefully, collectively, and always in service of life. As the world becomes connected once more, the distances between people shrink, not through technology, but through empathy. A new kind of civilization begins to shimmer at the edges of possibility, decentralized, peaceful, shaped by memory and humility. And beneath it all, the earth continues to heal. Forests cover deserts, coral blooms beneath clear oceans, and the air, once heavy with dust, now smells of rain again. Humanity, smaller in number but greater in understanding, stands quietly within a world that has forgiven it. As humanity settles into its quieter rhythm, a new kind of wisdom begins to take root. People no longer chase the old ambitions of growth or conquest. Instead, they seek meaning, to understand what it truly means to belong to the earth and not to own it. In this age, philosophy returns to its simplest form, the act of wondering. Each community has its thinkers, not professors or priests, but listeners. They spend their days observing the world, noting how clouds move, how roots reach for water, how balance returns where chaos once lived. Their teachings are not written in books, but spoken beside fires, sung in markets, whispered to children. A new spirituality emerges, one without temples or rigid creeds. People begin to see divinity not as a figure above, but as the quiet intelligence woven through all things, the pattern that allows moss to grow on stone, or rivers to carve through mountains. The earth itself becomes sacred, not as a symbol, but as a living presence. To harm it is to harm oneself. Festivals are held to honor this understanding. They are not grand or loud, but full of music, food, and laughter. Villagers decorate their homes with flowers, carve symbols of gratitude into wood and clay. Each year, at the turning of the seasons, they gather to celebrate balance, the equal measure of giving and taking. In a world rebuilt from loss, every act of celebration feels like defiance against despair. Education evolves not as a race for information, but as a practice of awareness. The young learn to read the sky, to sense when storms will come. They learn to plant by moonlight and to sing to calm animals before they are herded. They are taught the stories of the old world, not to fear it, but to remember. Knowledge has become a circle, shared equally, without hierarchy or competition. In one region, near the ruins of an old observatory, a group of scholars forms what they call the Circle of Renewal. They gather once a year from distant places to share what they've learned. New medicines from forest plants, new farming techniques, new ways of guiding communities through hardship. Their symbol is a simple spiral drawn in sand, representing growth that always returns to its roots. Over time, these gatherings become a tradition. Villages send their brightest minds, their best storytellers, their healers and artisans. Ideas travel farther than trade ever could. And though the tools of science have changed, no computers, no laboratories, the curiosity remains the same. Humanity still reaches for the stars, not with rockets, but with thought. Some even begin to study the remnants of the old technology. They dismantle machines, not to rebuild them, but to understand them, to learn why power without wisdom failed. In their notes, they speak of moderation, of the need to keep ambition tethered to empathy. They understand now that invention is a form of language, and every language must be used with care. Religion, art, and philosophy intertwine. The songs sung in one valley carry the same themes as prayers spoken in another: humility, gratitude, harmony. Humanity, scattered yet united by purpose, begins to resemble a single consciousness, many voices speaking the same quiet truth. Through all of this, the earth continues to heal. Forests that once burned now stretch unbroken from horizon to horizon. The seas teem with life so abundant that the waters seem to glow. Even in the silent zones, life creeps back, small, fragile, patient. The resilience of the planet becomes a mirror of humanity's own. The people of this age do not see themselves as survivors anymore. They see themselves as caretakers, stewards of a living world that has given them a second chance. Every dawn feels sacred, every sunset a reminder that light, no matter how often lost, will always find its way back. As decades pass, humanity begins to think beyond survival and settlement. A quiet confidence grows, not the arrogance of old empires, but the confidence that comes from understanding limits and honoring them. From scattered villages and isolated valleys, a web of connections spreads across the recovering earth. Messengers still travel by foot and sail, but now their journeys carry more than goods. They carry unity. Across mountains and rivers, they bring news of communities prospering in distant lands, of forests blooming, of children born into a world that has never known war. Their words tie people together, weaving a network not built of wires or codes, but of trust. Every few years, representatives from different regions meet in neutral valleys to share their progress. These are not summits of politics or power. They are gatherings of learning and reflection. Around open fires, leaders, farmers, and healers sit side by side. They share seeds, ideas, and songs. Disagreements arise, of course, but they are settled not with threat or fear, but with patience. Humanity has learned what anger costs. The idea of ownership fades further. Land is no longer divided by borders, but cared for by those who live closest to it. Oceans are seen as the veins of the planet. No one's to control, everyone's to protect. In this new era, the concept of wealth is measured not by possessions, but by balance, how well one can give as much as one takes. From this philosophy emerges a global pact, spoken not through laws, but through a shared promise. We will not repeat the past. It spreads like a story, told in countless languages, but understood by all. Children grow up reciting it as a kind of vow, to nurture life, to seek peace, to remember the silence that once followed destruction. Communication slowly improves, though in ways gentler than before. Long-distance signals, powered by the sun and wind, connect communities with simple tools, enough to share words, songs, and knowledge, but never to dominate. Technology returns not as a master, but as a servant. Its purpose is no longer to accelerate, but to harmonize. In the ruins of what was once a great capital, people build a new kind of city. It has no skyscrapers, no endless sprawl, only clusters of homes built from clay, glass and reclaimed metal, surrounded by gardens and waterways. It is a living city, grown rather than constructed. Every building supports plants and animals. Every street flows with water collected from rain. It stands as a symbol of what the world has become. Not the rebirth of civilization, but its evolution. The people who live there call themselves the gardeners of time. Their goal is simple: to care for the earth as though it were the most fragile artifact of all. They keep no armies, no weapons, no walls. Their strength lies in knowledge, cooperation, and humility. Elsewhere, oceans teem again with life. Coral reefs, thought lost, shimmer beneath clear blue waves. Forests reach from horizon to horizon, dense with bird song. The air, free of smoke for generations, carries the clean scent of renewal. Humanity has learned to move softly across its surface, like a guest who finally understands the generosity of their host. And yet, no one forgets. At the heart of each settlement stands a memorial, not of stone or metal, but of living trees, grown in circles. Beneath them, people gather each year to remember the old world and the fire that nearly ended it. These trees are called the keepers of memory. Their roots intertwine with the soil of what once was ruin, their leaves whispering with every passing wind. Never again. This is the age of peace, not perfect, not eternal, but real. Humanity has found balance, not through control, but through surrender. By learning to let go, it has learned to remain. In the centuries that follow, humanity grows into the earth rather than above it. The generations born into peace do not know the sound of sirens or the weight of fear. Their stories begin not with war, but with wonder. The world they inherit is vast and green, full of mystery, and they feel no urge to conquer it, only to understand it. Science returns quietly, reshaped by humility. It is no longer a race, but a meditation. Observation replaces ambition. Scholars study the stars again, but not to escape the planet, to learn how their home fits within the greater design. The night sky, clear and infinite, becomes both map and teacher. Old observatories are rebuilt, their telescopes repaired by hand. Under starlight, students gather around their mentors, learning to read the movements of distant worlds. They do not dream of colonization, but of connection, the possibility that other beings, somewhere beyond, have also learned the value of peace. The question that once drove humanity outward, can we survive elsewhere, has transformed into something gentler. Can we belong here and still reach beyond? Exploration resumes, but slowly. The rebuilt ships that set sail across the oceans are powered by wind and light. Their journeys are measured not in speed, but in purpose. They map the coastlines of a healed earth, rediscovering places long lost beneath the tide. Some expeditions reach lands untouched since the fall. Vast forests, deep valleys, islands overgrown with unfamiliar life. Each discovery is treated with reverence, never possession. Technology, when used, mirrors this restraint. Machines are small, efficient, and quiet. Tools meant to work with nature, not against it. Energy flows from the sun, the tides, the air. Waste is unthinkable. Every object is made to last or to return gently to the soil. The brilliance of this age lies not in its inventions, but in its wisdom to leave enough undone. Humanity also begins to look inward, to the mysteries of mind and spirit. With time and quiet, people learn again the art of contemplation. Meditation becomes as common as speech. Music, prayer, and science coexist seamlessly, all paths leading to the same truth, that existence itself is a miracle worth tending. Some communities build towers of glass and vine that rise into the sky, observatories and temples both. They are not fortresses of power, but sanctuaries of thought. Inside, poets and astronomers sit side by side, tracing constellations, composing hymns to the slow dance of planets. They speak of the universe as a great, breathing garden, and Earth as its first flower. The memory of destruction is never erased. Each new generation learns about the nuclear fires that once scorched the planet, not to dwell in guilt, but to understand the cost of ignorance. It is taught as both history and warning. The moment when humanity forgot, it was part of nature, not its master. Yet despite that shadow, the tone of the world remains hopeful. People believe in their future again, a belief earned through patience, not promises. They see the past not as a curse, but as compost, dark, painful, yet fertile. From it grows a civilization, both old and new, ancient in wisdom, young in heart. At night, when the stars stretch endlessly above the healed earth, people gather to listen to storytellers. Some tell of the first survivors, others imagine the distant future, a time when the descendants of peace will travel among the stars, carrying not weapons or flags, but seeds and songs. And as they listen, surrounded by the hum of insects and the whisper of leaves, humanity realizes something profound. It has not only survived, it has learned how to live. Time, patient and endless, carries humanity forward. The earth has healed beyond what the survivors of the old world could have dreamed. Forests stretch unbroken across continents, rivers flow clear and full, and the air tastes of rain and wildflowers. The ruins of the past remain, softened by moss and silence, reminders of what once was and what must never be again. Generations live and pass like seasons. No one calls themselves a survivor anymore. They are gardeners, storytellers, caretakers. They live not to build empires, but to preserve balance. The rhythm of life has become a shared heartbeat, slow, steady, and full of gratitude. Villages and cities now blend seamlessly with the land. Homes are built from living materials, wood that grows, stone that breathes, glass that glows softly under moonlight. Roads are rare, paths wind like rivers through meadows and forests. Travel is gentle, measured by footsteps and time spent noticing the world along the way. The people of this age do not count progress in numbers or machines, but in harmony. How well they listen, how kindly they live. Their technology is quiet, almost invisible, light, woven into the fabric of daily life, powered by the endless cycles of wind and sun. Their greatest invention is peace itself. Children still learn about the world before, the age of steel, of cities that shone like constellations and burned like stars. They learn about war and the pride that birthed it, about the fire that fell from the sky. But they do not inherit despair. They inherit understanding. The stories of the nuclear years are not told to frighten, but to remind that humanity once forgot it was part of a living world and paid dearly for that forgetting. On certain nights, under the vast and silent sky, entire communities gather to remember the first dawn, the morning after the Great Silence, when the survivors emerged into a world nearly lost. They light fires in circles, sing softly, and give thanks to those who endured, who rebuilt, who chose hope over surrender. It is said that the smoke from these fires rises into the heavens and joins the stars, carrying the memory of Earth's renewal across the universe. In this new world, there is no race to conquer the future, only the desire to belong within it. Humanity has learned that its strength lies not in dominance, but in tenderness, not in speed, but in stillness. Every act of creation, every birth, every seed planted is a quiet echo of that lesson. The scars of the past have become the roots of wisdom, and from those roots, a gentler civilization grows, one that may finally last. The world does not end with war after all. It ends, if we are wise, with balance, and begins again with understanding. Thank you, dear listener, for journeying through this imagining of life after the fire, a vision of rebirth, of peace, and of what humanity might yet become. If this story moved you or made you think, remember to subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below. Tell us what you felt, what you saw in your mind, and what world you'd like us to explore next. Until then, take care. Find stillness where you can. And remember, even after the darkest night, the earth always finds its dawn. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again in future videos.